The Talking Cheeseheads on cheeseheadtalk.com.
Back with Justin Hall, Talking Cheeseheads, cheeseheadtalk.com. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/cheesehead/Talking Cheeseheads. I got to get it straight. We're on iTunes. We're on this website. We're on YouTube. We're going to be more and more places, billboards, your house, wherever. We're going to be everywhere. But the topic here is Kyle Lohse, because I know I was watching, and listening to you a little bit, Justin, before we even started doing this. And when the Brewers signed Kyle Lohse, definitely out of desperation, I will fully admit that, because it's not even something you admit; it's just fact. They signed Kyle Lohse, and they try and shore up the front end of the rotation, and they sign him to $33 million over 3 years. And it's a high price tag, and you're wondering, if it's going to be like like Jeff Suppan or other Cardinal pitchers they've signed. And we don't know, but I think it's safe to say now after 3 starts, it was a brilliant signing and will be forever, right? And you were wrong, and just admit it.
No, I'm not going to admit it. Kyle Lohse could go out and win 20 games. This is not a playoff team. It's a terrible move because you're hamstringing yourself from moving forward. I hate this comparison because comparing other sports is not good. Define the Brewers right now. Where are they? Are they a contender or are they rebuilding?
They're a contender if they have pitching. That's my qualification because they have the offense.
But there's so much that – do they have the offense, 32-inning scoreless streak when they actually get some starting pitching? I mean, here's the thing about that is I'm afraid that this team is going to become the Milwaukee Bucks, where they don't go back far enough where you can reload, recycle, really find out what you have in the minor league system because they're not having an opportunity to do that. I get that prospect is just another word for haven't done yet. I mean, I understand that, but you need to find these things out. You have Ryan Braun to 2020. You have Yovani Gallardo, locked up for the next few years. So when I say locked up, I'm not talking about in jail because he's driving down Highway 90, I-94, driving 40 miles an hour. But you have to in baseball. When you're not a big market and you can't go out there and not sign Band-Aids, when you can go out there and sign big-time guys like Greinke, like CC Sabathia, like the Yankees and Dodgers can, when you can't do that, all you're going to start doing is putting on Band-Aids, putting on Band-Aids, putting on Band-Aids. Eventually, you got to rip the Band-Aid off and let the thing heal. And that's where Milwaukee is not going to do that.
So your definition, your definition with Lohse is, let's say he goes 3 years and posts an ERA around 3 and gives him quality start after quality start like he's done so far this season. I know he's going to have hiccups and stuff, but that's fine. And I was being a little obviously we're only 3 starts in, but he's performed well. If he can do the next 2 years, 2 to 3, let's just get 3. Let's say he does the next 3 years what he's done the last 2 years, which is very good. Two level pitching as far as rotation with the St. Louis Cardinals. Let's say he does that, but the Brewers don't make the playoffs. Are you still saying it's a bad? Is that your criteria for saying it's a bad signing? In other words, he has to post those numbers, and the Brewers have to be able to have the flexibility to have players, that can perform and make the playoffs. Is that your criteria for success?
Have a shot at the playoffs. Have a shot at the playoffs. That's what I would say because, I mean, if you sign them and you bring them in just to try to create this sense of we're being competitive, which is what I saw the move as in the first place, Mark Atanasio and the team unwilling to go through a rebuilding phase. If that's what you're doing, then it doesn't make sense. But if you feel like you can go out there and be a contender, you can do this, hey, that's great. Go out there and do that. And maybe this year, the signing this year makes more sense. I'm curious to see next year and the year after that when Corey Hart comes off the books. What are you going to end up doing there? Ricky Weeks' contract's up in the next few years. Where are you going? Where is this organization heading? I don't think there's a distinct plan. Ted Thompson has a plan. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know what Doug Melvin's plan is. There doesn't seem to be a plan with this team, and that's what concerns me. That's why I look at a move like they made with Kyle Lohse. And is it because they feel like they're a contender, or is it because they want to keep fans coming in and don't want to portray this idea that we're rebuilding, we're willing to give up on a year so we can be better 2-3 years down the road?
Well, it seems like a delicate balance, but to your point, as far as losing attendance because it's so important in Milwaukee to keep the franchise viable with that the TV contract they have, which apparently doesn't do squat compared to most other teams.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But to that point, years ago when the Brewers were bad to mediocre, the Brewers organization did a great job of selling the fans on the players that were coming up. You knew Ricky Weeks, Corey Hart, J.J. Hardy at the time, Prince Fielder, obviously, Ryan Braun when they drafted him, even Bill Hall. You knew these guys were in the minors, and they did a great job of marketing that. It was actually a brilliant campaign because it got people excited for the future in Milwaukee. Who do you know in the minors right now? I mean, when these guys come up, the guy who got the walk-off hit last night, I mean, I knew he had a good spring, but that was the first I had heard of him, or Josh Prince, or whoever's in the minors right now, okay, we don't hear about them at all. Is that because there's really the cupboards are bare now that Jack Zarenzek left? I knew it a couple of years ago. They leave the state, they leave my mind. Jack Zarenzek left a couple of years ago. Is the cupboard bare, or is it just that because we're paying much more attention to the big league club now because there's something to pay attention to that we just don't hear about them? I mean, that's what I'm worried about because you're right. Rebuilding. I'm still saying no because they have the talent here. They're just a couple of players away in the pitching staff to make a serious run and get to the playoffs. That's my feeling on it. So I'm not going to say rebuilding because they're almost there, I feel like. Now, it's a big gap, I understand, with pitching because you need pitching. But the minor leagues, that's my big concern. Where's the talent coming up?
Yeah, and it's a valid point, and I'll be honest with you. I'm probably more in tune being in the Fox Valley because we have the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers and their partnership with Milwaukee. So when these guys come to Wisconsin and come to Appleton, I followed them. Chris Davis was a Timber Rattler. Martin Maldonado, Tyler Thornburg, Willie Peralta. I saw these guys pitch, 10 minutes away from where I'm sitting right now. So I think that's that intrigue in there. But I think you're right overall is you have a major league roster and players that you can market. You have a Ryan Braun, you have a Yovani Gallardo, so you can toss the attention to those guys. But they can't, again, they can't do it on their own. Kyle Lohse and I don't know. Yovani Gallardo, seriously, Marco Estrada pitches well. If Kyle Lohse does what he does, if Gallardo can get his head out of his backside and on and off the field right now, okay, you can be competitive. But bullpen stuff, health of this team. Ryan Braun, is he going to play the entire season? I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen there. Corey Hart's not going to be back with the team until June. There's so many question marks right now. I was talking to a colleague of ours, Drew Wagner from down in Milwaukee, and we were talking about Milwaukee last year and the success that they had. They lost an opportunity to market rebuilding, a reload. When you had Greinke and Markham coming up and they were so out of it, you actually were able to sell the trade to the fan base. But then all of a sudden, they went on this miraculous run that they did, while everybody else in the National League went on this miraculous downslide to give, the Brewers this hope and just to kind of create this sense of overall false hope in baseball with the extra wild card that is there, that you're in it when you might not be in it, and it might prevent you, from making some of those moves. Because I think if Milwaukee doesn't have that success, you might have seen a year where it was easier to throw out a struggling Michael Fires, or throw out a struggling, Tyler Thornburg, than to throw out a Kyle Lohse who's going to go out there and good. And I just want to bring up one other point too. And Kyle Lohse is probably going to end up being better, and I'm probably on the minority, and I hope I'm wrong with it, with the things that I said. But come year 3 of that deal, if Milwaukee's, even this year, if Milwaukee's 10, 15 games under 500, how many times did I hear in the past, why is that guy out there? Why not give this guy a chance? Why not see what you have there? I wonder if you're going to lose that opportunity to not only see what you have there, but also get that guy ready, because you need a year or two to decide on these prospects to see if they're going to be a Ben Sheets or if they're going to be a Manny Parra. You have a couple of years to do that, and the sooner you can do that, the sooner they're going to be major league ready out there, able to compete. And I just think you push that time back and back and back, and if you start pushing it back, you're getting into the twilight of Ryan Braun and Ricky Weeks and all these other guys' careers.
Well, I go to the concept of, can you do both? And you know, it might already be too late. Do they have enough pitching prospects? You know, I know they count Willie Peralta as one of those, but do they have enough pitching prospects to actually come up? Because the Brewers, you know, the thing with the Brewers is, like any other small market team, you've got to develop your pitching. I mean, $33 million over 3 years is the max contract you can do. I don't think it's going to hamstring them, you know, the way that Jeff Suppan did, because that was an extra year. I don't think it's going to do that to Milwaukee, but it's right up to the limit, and it's about the best you can get. You're not going to go, obviously, everybody knows this, you're not going to go sign a big-name pitcher, so you're going to have to develop them or land them in a trade the way you did with Greinke or something like that. But you need prospects to do both, right? Yeah. So that's the deal with Milwaukee. That's what frightens me as far as a window or pushing things back to Ryan Braun's, you know, later career. You know, it's here. I mean, you know, the guy's MVP caliber every year, whether he's going to be suspended or not, and you've got offensive tools to build around guys who are going to be here for the foreseeable future. And to me, you know, that's why I like Lohse. But can a couple other guys develop enough to make the Brewers contenders consistently for a few years? You know, this year will go, whether they crap out or not, or continue to crap out, I guess I should say, or not. Well, they're kind of on a winning streak now. I don't know what's going on. But if they continue to, you know, throw out Peralta and fires, I'm not very confident in that guy. Yeah. Maybe Narvis, and, you know, maybe you see something. I was talking yesterday that, you know, two of those guys need to step up, you know, this year if they're going to contend. And Yovani Gallardo's got to, you know, find a way to get hot. And hopefully he can.
One thing I'll say to that point, too, is you talk about who do they have there. I think one thing Doug Melvin has done is he stockpiled a number of guys. Not that everyone's going to go out there and do it. You know, if Manny Parra didn't develop, the Brewers were in trouble. He didn't develop. You know, Ben Sheets, if he didn't develop, the Brewers were in trouble. He developed, they were fine. You know, Kyle Peterson, Mark Rogers, all those other guys that were there. But in the last few years, Taylor Youngman, Jed Bradley, Jimmy Nelson a few years back, Hiram Burgos. I mean, you're talking about a handful, 5, 6, 7 guys that the Brewers have down at the minor league system. Drew Gagnon, David Goforth, they were Timber Rattlers last year. You know, some feel they can project to be major leaguers, maybe not an everyday starter, maybe in the bullpen, but you got numbers. You have options, and you have guys that you can bring up and try. In the past, when the AAA is filled with Mike DeFelice and Tim Dillard and, you know, Seth McClung, I mean, those are the guys that you're forced with throwing out there. At least the Brewers have put some options into their minor league system that they can go out there and try. But ultimately, you know, it's about winning games. It's about performing on the field and trying to find the guys that can do it. And if Kyle Lohse is going to do that, if he's going to make you a better team, it'll turn out being the right move. And I would be happy to say I'm wrong if that is the case.
Well, I just think about where they'd be even at this point, so early in the season without that guy. I mean,
well, they'd be 5-8 because he's what, 0-2.
Yeah, I know. Well, but still, I guess that's
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
you might be a worse 5-8 like guys with torn rotator cuffs all over the place.
Okay.
And of course, you were talking about the guy. I love it, by the way. It's one of my favorite games to play is, you know, old Brewers that you'd forgotten about. Seth McClung. I mean, there's a name. I haven't thought about that guy forever.
You want to hear? You want to hear another great game to play is guys that used to pitch for the Timber Rattlers that are now pitching for the Nina Brewers in the Northeast Wisconsin Senior Baseball League. Juan Ramos, not sure if you remember that name, but he was thigh glove to his junk. That guy touched his junk on the mound more than anybody. Juan Ramos.
Oh, that's
Juan Ramos,
worth the price of admission in Appleton alone.
Ask Nick Brandel. He was a legend. He was a legend.
I will do that sometime.
It was a great drinking game, and it made for lots of dollar beer fun at Fox City Stadium back in the day.
Yeah, it sure did. I can see that. I got to get up there. Let's check out some.
Come on up, I'll take
it. All right, we'll make an outing of it.
Offer stands. Yep.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. We'll take you up on that. We'll continue with the podcast in just a minute. We're going to touch on a few things, including Wrigley Field renovation. How good will that be? That's up next on the Talking Cheeseheads.
The Talking Cheeseheads on cheeseheadtalk.com.